Yes. Understanding.
Well, what's my place here? We're all here, aren't we?
We're all here. Who's
Angelina, there's John.
Jeremy, Abby, Jeremy.
There's John.
Is everyone prepared? Use power will just continue.
Yeah, still daylight.
The green Jeep that went to the beach out by us. They don't move it soon, someone's gonna take a house in there, sure. Really?
I just figured out you're talking about the one in the ditch.
I'm afraid someone's gonna put a for sale sign on it.
Oh.
Where's it at?
We'll call it caution tape. It feels like
It's
right
on
next to
101, just beside like East Pine on
Oh,
the
yeah.
west side.
It sounded encouraging.
And the people that lived there, I said they needed to put on a sign that said, slow, be careful of ditch.
Yeah.
Or something, we had it forever.
Oh, I'm sure it's just a version that you
It says slow fly.
The ditch there,
Oh,
up in that section, they catch a car once a week.
yeah, I saw that one down there.
It's a difficult stretch of road that's perfectly straight. I have to wait till 6, guys. I'll wait for Mr. Sweet to join us also. I don't need to wait for him.
Well, he'll be here.
I can't count as being here, it's not here.
He's right there.
Are you here?
I am, I'm just looking for a printout. so you're welcome to-
Okay, all right.
I'm here too, isn't it?
Long instead of late. It's 6 o'clock. I call to order the City of Gerhart Planning Commission meeting. All commissioners are in attendance. Our newest member, John Messberg, is attending by Zoom. John, would you briefly introduce yourself to the rest of us?
I'd be very happy to. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. My name is John Messberg. I have a home in Gerhart at 166 North Marion. I currently live full-time in Ann Arbor, Michigan with my wife, but we are moving to Portland and Gerhart this coming spring. I'll be there next week, and I'll be there for the balance of the summer. And then we're making the final move to join our children and our grandchildren in Portland. And I look forward to subsequent meetings, including next month's being with you in person, assuming that we have one. I am passionate about the community. I'm new. I've bought in 2019. Obviously, for a couple of years there, I was not out as much as I had intended for obvious reasons. But we intend to be out a lot, and we love it. We first found Gerhart when my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, who lived in Cannon Beach, took us there about 20 years ago, and we've been visiting pretty much every year since then. Sometimes driving on the beach, sometimes just walking around town. And we were so pleased when Pat Wallner's house came on the market in 2019 and we were able to join the community. So I look forward to working with all of you. I obviously don't have experience on this type of body, although I certainly have a great deal of experience in meeting settings, having been a executive at IBM for many years. And I will learn from all of you as to how to operate during this. And Chad and Angelina gave me good training the other day, so I feel I'm somewhat prepared. And we'll see where it goes and how I can support the community.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, moving forward, we have the consent agenda. There's the minutes, May 12th, the financial report on May 31st. There is no correspondence to the minutes. The one correction, Angelina, is to change Russ to a his from a her. Because Russ was voted in as vice president of this organization last meeting.
And I'd like to thank everyone right now.
Yeah, and I will be gone, so you will take over. Yes, so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Carrie is moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Sharon is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those say nay. Oh, I'm sorry. I forget about you out there. Excuse me, I moved through some of this quickly. Hang in there with us. Okay, reports, staff, Carol?
There's just a report on the ODOT Highway 101 Safety and Improvement Plan that's been under construction for almost 2 years, is about to finish. And the draft is going to be online for public review and comment, starting on the 13th for about 10 days or so.
13th of
June. And, you know, I hope you take a few minutes. It's not a long document, but you'll see some really good information there, and feel free to comment, because you everybody here in the room will be impacted by the improvements that are planned, and they are really trying to get input. You probably have plenty of things to report.
Not plenty, just a couple. Try to keep it a little bit shorter tonight.
Okay, can't you give me anything else at the moment? Reserve judgment.
Thank you, Carol. I see Chad is eager to report.
Eager, yeah. So we all saw how the election went. The city council's working forward and trying to figure out what their next steps are going to be. We saw that Mayor Palmina had resigned. It was a quality of life issue for her. So that's the reason she made that decision. And she was an amazing part of the planning commission when I first started here. And she taught me a lot. And I think she was also very educational to a lot of the people that came through here. And it's one of the reasons that planning commissioners keep getting picked away for city council positions, it seems. And I think that that's a compliment to you folks and to her. So she's somebody's. She's still going to be around, and I'll enjoy using her as one of my trusted advisors for sure. So the city council will be selecting among themselves a new mayor, but interim Carrie Smith is, as the president of the council, is acting mayor. And they'll select that within themselves, and then they will also select a new councilor to replace either Palina's position or his position if he remains as mayor. So that is what's going on. There's no movement forward. We've stopped all progress towards the site that we were looking at, towards the land swap issue. We're not doing anything with that at the moment. But we're waiting for some of the dust to settle for the city council to get back together before they start making some decisions. But yeah, they heard the vote, and they've got some work to do. So here we go. Park across the way, we're in 10. We have the play gym equipment received. It's beautiful stuff. It's kind of unique. It's made out of robina wood, and it looks quite natural, and I think it'll fit that area really well. We're gonna start the process of breaking ground here pretty quick. We did have an installer set up to help us with that project. But with all the labor issues and all the things that are going on, we're having some issues there, so we might be slightly delayed, but I'll know more here in a couple of days. Other than that, that's what I have, unless I have any questions from the commissioners.
I have a question about the playground equipment. Does it have to be like an official installer to put that in for warranty issues or something?
We're working all that out right now. And it's actually not complicated at all. And it's not required, no. And our insurance company is good with the equipment that we've provided and how we're going to install it, even if we have to do it ourselves. But regardless, keep an eye, here we go. Keep an eye out for the blog, because we're gonna try to make it a volunteer effort. It'll be fun. And it's really cool
That'd
structure.
be fun.
Yeah, yeah. If you volunteer, Terry, you could be the first one to use a swing.
IKEA on a big scale.
It's, yeah, it's nice. It is like, yeah, scale, yeah.
Anything else?
No, man.
Angelina, do you have anything for us? No. Okay. Commissioners, do you have anything? Silence.
I have something.
Oh, okay.
I would just like to follow up on what Chad said about Paulina Cockrum. I think she's done a great service for the city, and I think there's probably 3 or 4 of us here that were appointed by her. And so I would just like to acknowledge her service to the planning commission in the city. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Sharon, you raised your hand.
Ex parte?
No.
No, not yet.
This is, if you have something of importance that you think you need to let us know.
Unrelated to the agenda.
Yes, I'm related to. The thing that I wanted to say was that, if you've not checked the correspondence that was sent to the city council for the last city council meeting, it is online and you can look at it. There were some, what could be planning issues or things like that that were addressed in some of those letters, and you might find them interesting, but they are available there on the agenda package for the last city council meeting. Nothing else? The goals list. We don't get all nice and red this time, Carol.
No, everything's in order except, he left. Well, so I just wanted to ask you 2 things. Because now that we finished the park plan and the highway plan is wrapping up, you know, it might be time to start looking at some other planning issues. Chad, so regarding the goals list, right now the fire station and the UGB swap is the number one priority.
Mhm.
And maybe we want to change that or not put any priority to it yet, or,
Yeah, a suggestion would be maybe to hold off until the city council is able to convene, we get maybe a little bit of direction from them.
so just leave it.
Yeah, I think for now, unless you'd like to make, I mean, it's your goals list, so the commission can do what they want with it, but that's what my recommendation would be, just to hold off for just a month.
Okay, and the other one was the elk initiative.
Yeah, so the declaration of cooperation, we went through the Oregon Solution situation, and for those of you that are a little bit new, I'm sorry, John, you can't see me here, I'm just over here by the paper folding machine. So we went through this process with Oregon Solutions. It was a project that was given, appointed through the governor to work on the elk and the amount of elk that are around here and the damage and the danger, the beauty, all the things that go on with the elk. So we went through that process. In that, the cities, the state, 3 cities, parks, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Hunters Association, all sorts from Oregon Planning, a huge group of people got together and tried to work through that process. With that, we received what was called a declaration of cooperation, where all these entities signed this document and said, here's kind of how we move forward, or here's some ideas to move forward and some subjects for you to take on and see if you can make it work within your community. I'll be providing you a list of that declaration of cooperation in those items. But I think that part of the cooperation is that the city will move some of these things forward, at least have the discussions. So we'll provide you with that document and we can maybe put on the goals list 2 or 3 of the items that are in there as far as suggestions and start working through them. So that's my intention, and Angelina and I'll get you that document.
Okay, so it's down in the future.
Yeah, but I think near future would be nice just to maybe take up some of the things that we're gonna remove.
So we'll provide you the information and put it on the goals list for next month,
Yes.
somewhere,
That'd be-
Somewhere,
with not every question answered.
okay. Comments from the commissioners about the goals list, anything concerns about, yes, sure.
Is it up to us or up to Carol to write into the zoning ordinance, the estuary riparian zone?
The part that was in the parks plan?
Yeah.
It's already in there and it's been adopted.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure we've actually put it in the online version of, or any version of the printed document.
There's no number.
Yeah.
No, of the zoning code. She and I haven't gone through the process of sitting down and walking through all the changes and getting them in there. The latest update of the zoning. ordinance. So thank you for reminding me, because we need to do that. Okay. But it was adopted, so it just needs to get in this.
And the wording has to be in the zone.
Yes, and it will be, and it was officially decided by ordinance that it's in there, so we just have to actually physically put it in here and give you a new version of 2022 updated the zoning ordinance.
Anything else? All right, then let's move ahead. This is the time for visitors' comments. If anyone in our audience would like to speak to something that is not on the agenda tonight, this is your chance. Is there anyone either here or on screen that wanted to speak to something not on the agenda tonight? Not hearing anything moving forward. Angeline, am I seeing everyone that's on the Zoom meeting on the screen? Is there anyone else? Okay, thank you. All right, land use application. So what we have in front of us is the final plat approval for number 22-02P, Raw Mart Partitions, Raw Mart Lane. Carol has some words to share with us.
Okay, this is the very last stage of any kind of land division. You first had a hearing on the preliminary plat, and then they came back with the final plat and replied to all the conditions of approval that you included your decision. And so what you have before you is a final order to approve a final minor land partition to divide one parcel into two, creating one new home site on a parcel located on a private street named Ron Mark Lane in a residential zone. This is not, the hearing is over, the testimony is over. What is here is simply a response to the conditions of approval that were applied to the decision, so that they could then prepare the final plat and take it to the county courthouse and get it recorded. Now they have officially a new lot. Just as an aside, I've worked for dozens of cities in the state. This step never comes to the planning commission that I've ever worked in any other city. This usually is a staff decision. You know, we take your decision and make sure all the conditions are met. But in Gerhard, it's Gerhard, right? So anyway, I will just turn to page 6 and say there are 8 conditions, and then the reply in red is how they were met or will be met. And what often happens in a land division is you can't have everything answered until they get their lot division approved and recorded, and then they have to build, so they gotta figure out how much grading to do, how many what the water connections will be in final, because there are 2 proposed. Any engineering that might be needed for site grading and septic installation, so that happens in-house. And that's why some of these conditions are not exactly met yet, but they happen at the level of expertise of the building official, the fire chief, and the city administrator. So let's see, the only thing I would say is the culvert, we were maybe concerned about not being able to handle additional traffic. Has been confirmed as of yesterday. Chad checked it and said it's in good condition. So that one is not a concern. And so I would now ask if you have any questions, and if not, I would recommend a motion to approve the final plat subject to those conditions.
Are there any questions for Carol or any discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the final plat as presented?
So moved.
Russ has moved. Do I have a second? Judy has seconded, sorry.
No worries.
And Judy has seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Awesome. It is approved and we move forward with that. Okay. Moving on to our public hearing. I will open the hearing for 22-04P HHB Cutler Partition Application Cutler Lane. An application for approval of a minor land partition to divide one parcel into 3 on a parcel located on a private street named Cutler Lane in a medium density residential R2 zone. I need to read a hearing disclosure statement. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to the other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or land use board of appeals, or to seek damages in circuit court due to condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the planning commission for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence, arguments, or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearings body shall grant this request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance to time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence, argument, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763(6)A through E. Do any of the commissioners need to declare a conflict of interest and ex parte contact or personal bias? Yes, Sharon.
I visited the site and I spoke very briefly with a gentleman who was standing out in the front yard of the house there.
On Cutler,
Yes.
and is there something you would like to share with us about that?
Oh, I just asked him, I said, does the house property go to where the encompass where the fence portion is?
Gotcha, okay. Yes, Don,
I have visited the site as well.
and
I did too.
Russ did. Judy, I don't know. Gary?
No, I didn't.
And I visited, I did both Cutler and Park Avenue to see what was going on down on both of them.
Judy, did you see the difference at the site?
She did. Okay, I need to ask the audience now, are there any challenges to the commission's ability to make an impartial decision? Hearing none, I will move on to the staff report.
Thank you, Mrs. President. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Good. For cover.
Cutler.
And are you Nate?
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay. Sometimes, I'm not sure. Okay, so this is another land division. Now we're talking about a parcel to create one parcel into 3. And this is on a private street easement named Cutler Lane. This is an R2 zone. So just so you know, it's not an R1, which is more typical of Gerhard. And just running through in a summary manner here as fast as I can. I know you have the material. I'll try not to dwell on too many details because I'm sure you've read it. There's no wetlands identified on the 2011 wetland inventory. It's a half an acre total. It's turning into 3 parcels. And we received 3 pieces of testimony since the staff report was published 7 days before the hearing. The first one was on June 6th from Ronnie Parham. Second one on June 7th from Debbie Cutler. And the third one from the 8th from Brian Evans. And you should all have received those, right? Okay, good. Very good. Okay, now, some information that I'm looking at on page 2. And just so you know, this was a partition, well, all the land on the east side of the highway were larger lots, have slowly been dividing over time, right? And so this was first divided in 2005. And what was created then, we think it was by the city, not the county, because some of those lands were in the county when they were divided. We think it was a city decision, which created these 3 lots that are out there now. One is EPI on the highway, and then there's one in the middle that has a house on it. And then there's this back piece that's the remnant piece that's proposed to turn into 3 new home sites. Now, your subdivision ordinance says every new lot shall abut a street. And typically that means a public street. So there's 2 problems with the way this was divided in the first chance in 2005 and recorded. And that is part of the 2 back parcels do not abut a public street, right? And so secondly, it's not a public street. They created a private driveway easement, 25 feet wide. Now, that's typically a minimum just for fire access. So that that's what they did. They met the minimum to get back there. But regardless, it creates now, since the zoning allows these 3 lots back there to be the size they are, none of them are on a public street, and we can't go back and make it a public street because it's a recorded easement. And it's just like Broadmark. Broadmark, you know, if you look on the map, you see the lots, but there's no street on the map because it's an easement. And so there are constraints to start with this property based on the prior decision. It was not necessarily done in accordance with the city ordinance. We don't know the whole history. I just want to make sure you understood that. Not much flexibility there. So it goes from the highway to the railroad bed on the east end. And it's a 25-foot gravel road from the highway, goes across in front of EPI, and then it does an S curve in front of a residence, and then it goes to the back, and then it ends at the railroad bed, which is a steep slope. I think I figured 16 feet or it was more than that, 24 feet, we'll get to that. Up to the top of the, so there's nowhere for the road to go. It's about 25 feet wide and it's gravel. Okay, the site visit yesterday from city administrator determined, I'm just gonna go through couple of things right now that I'm adding to the staff report right here now, is that first of all, if you try to turn in there, you're going north and you try to turn onto this Cutler, it's a sharp turn around a stop sign and a telephone pole, and it's just like, you can't really slow down, you just gotta get in there. And when Chad was trying to get out, he found that the gravel was so, it was just inadequate enough to get out of there safely, because you gotta take off to get out, to get into the stream of traffic. And so with at least the approach or the exit, I should say, onto the highway. We'd like to add that there be a condition that they have a 25, roughly 25 by 20-foot asphalt concrete approach, pad, whatever you want to call it. Asphalt, not concrete. And so that once you get your car up to the highway, then you can get traction to get out. That's one thing. Secondly, in the back, well, this is all in the back, but on the far lot that you see the 3 lots on your drawing, there are about 25 trees back there that I counted. Actually, that includes parcel 2 and parcel 3. And what the best that we can understand, well, they're proposing to cut 20 of those 25 trees down. 4 of 5 on parcel 2 and 16 of 19 on parcel 3. And dune will have to be graded. And I think, to my knowledge, I don't know enough anymore yet, but it'll look something like the graded dune at the end of Park Lane, which is one street to the north. And it's a pretty big job to take the contours on this drawing and flatten it out for the septic and drain field and the house. And that requires all those trees being cut, up to the top of the dune, to flatten it for the house and the drain field. So, in a little bit of additional thinking about this, I'm gonna suggest that we and you and the applicant consider saving about 8 of those trees. At least, for lot number 3. And we'll come back to that. Okay, running through then, there's no wetland, county health has to improve 3 septic systems, and they have to be 10 feet from the street so they don't get driven on. There's two proposals for water service. One is from an existing line in the easement, and another would be across another property to the north at 1321 Park Lane by a private legal water easement. And I believe the applicant is getting closer to deciding on that second option. Either way, they are 2 different options. The nearest fire hydrant is 550 to 660 feet from the site, and therefore the houses, if they're all built and approved, would have to have sprinkler systems because they're too far away from a hydrant. And it's either that or bring a hydrant and install a new one. And that's not, I don't think, in the plans. Okay, so those are some things about the site. Now we'll just kind of rush through what your code provides for and how they've met it. So in the tsunami hazard overlay zone, which covers all of Gerhart, and forgive me for dwelling on some of the details, but we do have 3 new members. And I have to, John, I'm sorry, I can't look at you as well, because you're over there. I feel like I need to say some things, and I know you already know it all. So if I talk too much.
Okay. Is Mr. Magyar here? Do you want to leave?
I'm interested in
Okay.
any land use decision.
All right,
I just like hearing it.
fine. I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted to excuse yourself, but I am glad to have you stay.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Good to know. Okay. Yes, so the tsunami hazard overlay zone has a maximum of 10 dwellings per acre. And that's the city's safety provision for not putting big institutional uses in the lowest part of town with the most potential for the most people to be affected. So anyway, that 10 dwellings per acre, this is far less than that. They're putting 3 on a half an acre. So they meet that. These 3 lots do not, they're well under maximum. The fire code would require, according to the chief, be no parking allowed on that easement from the highway all the way back to the 3 parcels and signed that way, no parking sign. And they just want to make sure that the final plat denotes a turnaround depth of 70 feet as it's designed. And I'm not, maybe it just needs to be written on the final plat so that it's clear what that distance is, so there's adequate room to turn around. The, you know, the problem with the no parking signs is it's not a city street, and can we enforce it? Well, if somebody complains, we will, but, and the signs hopefully will have the effect of making sure nobody parks on the street. But the hairy entry in there with the S curves and the situation, there would not be a way to get to the back of any of those 3 houses if the street's blocked by cars. Particularly because there's already cars associated with the house there and the business in front. Okay, so now to the zoning. Our R2 zone allows a 7,500 square foot lot, and indeed, these are both, 2 of them are 7,500 and one of them is 76. Plus a bit. So they are permitted by the zone. Slightly smaller than our, you know, as long as they get septic approval on those lots. And they've shown you on the drawings that where the houses would be and where the driveways would be and how they meet the setbacks and where the drain field systems would be. So that you can see they've got through, even though they're slightly smaller lots than we're used to, where everything is placed and how it meets our required setback. So, you know, the plan shows all those things in compliance with our code. Okay, I'm not gonna say like I do in the staff report about 5 times that we can't make them put any street improvements in because it's a private easement. Even though normally you would in a land division, that ship has sailed when the 2005 land division allowed it as the private easement with no direct access. So we don't have authority to go back and make that a public street. So there's quite a bit of verbiage on that I'll skip it. What you can require, just like we did on Broadmark, was a easement to get up to the future recreation and access trail up on the railroad trestle. And this is not much of a connection, but if there are 3 houses and 3 families and the house is there, they would be able to cross up and reach the top of the bank to get to the future trail. So that's a recommended condition of approval. And other than that, a lot of details on the utilities will come out in the final drawings, and monumentation, survey requirements, all the things that are final plat, just like we just reviewed, come back to you one more time. So I think with that, I won't go into any more detail other than if you have any questions, and remind you that on page 10, there's a list of conditions. And those are some of them standard for any land division, but first of all, coming back to you for final. Secondly, the no parking signs and the dimensions on the lots and the sprinklered homes. I think somewhere in there, I would like to add the construction of an asphalt apron estimated to be 25 by 20 at the highway approach. Then there's condition 3 that talks about that the east end will need to be leveled and graded to accommodate a dwelling and a septic system on parcel 3, where the steep dimension that the grade goes from 24 feet to 40 feet. Yeah, so 16 feet is what that stair step, the contours is to the top of the railroad berm. That the city finds there's a need potentially to engineer that in advance. So there'll be adequate fire access on the east side of the dwelling on parcel 3. And there will be no dune sloughing or destabilization as determined by the city building official. So that it's hard for us to know here how to determine that, and we do leave that decision to the city building official. And if you have had a chance to go down Park Lane, I think it's gonna turn out like that, that one. Because you'll see that on Park Lane, which is just to the north, they made a home site, 2 home sites, and they leveled the dune, so they level to the house and septic system. And then push that sand, I don't know, up over the edge of the top of the berm with a gradual incline. And you've seen some of the comments from the neighbors about what their fear is of that not being stable. So please add anything.
Yeah, so I just figured something out. I let it up on the path earlier. when we were looking at this. So if you look at the tentative partition plan here, the dotted lines, on that piece of property that's farthest to the east
Right?
are the current grade. The thick lines
Oh,
are going to be the future grade.
okay,
So you see that there's not much in the way of a cut. In my interpretation of that data.
Say that again.
So you're looking at the third property.
Yeah.
One farthest east. Do you see the small dotted
the
lines?
dash lines with the numbers on them, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40.
40,
Yeah.
yeah, so that is the current grade. Now do you see the dark lines that have numbers attached to them as well?
Mhm.
That looks like what the future grade would be. So
yeah.
they're not making much of a change. For example, where it's about 38 feet, they're proposing 36. Where it's about 36, they're proposing 32. So it just kind of, they're following the grade. And according to this plan.
But they're just pushing the grade. It's still going to go from down here to up there.
Yeah.
It's just going to be in a shorter distance.
Well, it says 2 to 1, right? The slope, 2 to 1. But it looks like the corner of the house is gonna have to go like this. From 24, 28,
I guess we could get clarification.
32. I'm not quite sure how that works. And maybe the applicant can tell us that. But when we get, just a minute, as soon as we, the
Not-
chairman
Not your
recognizes.
turn yet.
Sorry. We have to stick by it.
So apologies for that earlier, but that's.
I have a script.
I just believe by looking at it, I think it has to look like the one from Park, but I don't know how else you flatten that. Okay,
So if we have questions for you about your report right now, do any of you have questions for Carol right now about her report?
and I didn't finish the conditions, but you
Oh,
know what
okay,
they
I
are.
thought you were done, I'm sorry.
I think the rest are all surveying and utilities and the 5-foot wide access trail across the north parcel of parcel 3, north property line of parcel 3, water as determined, septic shall be at least 10 feet from the street, and all the utilities, storm, water, underground utilities, parking signs, damage to the public lane has to be restored. Those would be conditions, so I am finished.
You are finished. Now, do we have any questions for Carol? Anyone have a question? I do. This line about the no parking on the easement.
Right,
And the only map that we have with a picture of what I believe is the easement is included in your report. It's a little dotted line going up there beside the property.
it's on the drawing too,
No, I'm talking about from the road, from the highway.
all the way.
All the way. I'm not talking about that, because my question is, that the easement is, as far as I can tell, the easement actually goes from just the back part of the property closest to the highway, and then makes the turn and then goes up,
Right, north,
okay,
right,
and the dotted line.
that's right, that's the dash
easy.
line, that's the
Okay.
easement.
So my question is, no parking, is that no parking along that whole easement?
25 feet wide, that's what it is, it's gravel, and that's what the fire chief, I'm pretty sure said, so. And you
Okay.
can't, there's no way you could even put one car and there wouldn't be enough room to go by, you can't park. You would-
But my observation was, looking at the property, that the people that have Evans Plumbing trucks were parked on the back, on,
There was a trailer back there, right,
right.
and in the
And
house,
there was, it depends on what time of day you go there.
yeah, the house that's in the middle, right, behind EPI.
Right.
They had vehicles in their driveway that might be then intruding into that.
Oh, that's what I'm asking,
Yes.
so I understand that
It has to
the
be like-
expectation is no parking along that whole easement.
with the caveat that
It can't
it's
be
private,
enforced?
it's not like we're gonna be patrolling it every day.
Okay, but still,
So
it's
matter of
there.
complaints, the best way, I guess.
All right. That was my question, so I can understand.
Yeah, your good clarification.
All right. Moving on. It is now time for the applicant to give his report. So if you would please give us your name and your address.
Nathan Johnson, I'm representing Heritage Homes.
Can you stand up?
Yes, I'm
Some
sorry.
of us are old.
And your address, please, because it is recorded, that's why I asked you.
90856 Fort Clatsop Road, Astoria. Oregon, 97103. I thought Carol did an exceptional job kind of outlining just the bullet points of this project. It's the idea is a future site with 3 homes, smaller homes. The tentative partition layout is tentative in the sense that some things are kind of unknowable, and that speaks to the grading issues that you brought up. I totally agree that that'll have to be an engineer grading plan, where there's some solutions that are outlined with an engineer on the final elevation and slope of those grades on that berm. But you're right, Chad. Those solid lines do indicate kind of our proposal of what we can see based on of what the future grade will be, and then the hash marks are what's there now. So as you can see by the plan, 3 single-family homes. Yes, there are some trees that we've labeled and we've been upfront about that have to come out. I don't know, I haven't come up with any good solutions of ways to keep even any of the ones that we've marked. And I know that you mentioned that you had some reservations about that, but with the material that has to be moved, I don't see a way to save those trees that we marked without the moving of the material is going to compromise the systems, the root systems. So I haven't found a way, unless you guys have an idea that can be mitigated. Happy to hear some feedback on that as well. But I'm hoping that you guys will have some questions for me. I don't really have anything beyond that. I'm sure there's some things that you could ask me.
Yeah.
Russ, you have a question for the applicant?
Well, I'm wondering what elevation you're in. Have you determined, if you're doing the plan where you're proposing it,
Yeah,
are you determining that 3rd house floor level is substantially higher than the other two houses?
Substantially, so thanks for asking that, so Carol kind of drew a parallel between the way this is gonna look as opposed to what's around it, it's just different, this property, it's further to the west than some of the work that has gone on Park Lane. The eastern boundary is at the top of the railroad berm as opposed to incorporating the railroad berm. So we're working with that outermost boundary, and so our job would be to not destabilize what's there and create some type of a stable and engineered stabilized slope at like a 2-to-1 slope that as you see on the plan. 1.5 to 1, 2-to-1 slope, and then build our way up the hill with a narrow plan as opposed to a wide plan. So there could be 8 to 12 feet of a rise in that foundation from the lowest step to the top step with a garage under.
Oh, I see.
Garage under style plan to minimize the amount of climb up to the house. And so we're just gonna use the slope rather than try to defeat it, if you know what I'm saying. And that's what a garage under plan will do.
And so those 5 trees, let's say there's 1, 2, 3 that has X's, X'd out at the northeast, north, west, northeast corner, and then there's 2 in the southeast corner that are X'd out, and then there's 2 that you're keeping. Is that right?
I see 3 on the eastern line.
Yeah, 3 at the north end.
Oh, yeah, and there's a 4th on the north,
Oh, there's a 3rd on the line, yeah.
Yeah.
3 that are you're keeping, period. And then you go down a couple steps, and there's 1, 2 at the south end and 1, 2, 3 at the north end. You think those would have to come out?
I do. I don't see that as being viable.
Okay,
To work with taking into account the drain field and riparian excavation for the house, I don't see it happening without some compromise of the system.
okay.
There's already a couple of leaners up there. I don't know if you guys noticed that when you looked at it, that it just doesn't seem to take much before things start to deteriorate when there's excavation work around.
Okay, thank you.
Russ, did you have any further questions? No. Does anyone else have a question? Tara, do you?
No question.
Yes, I have a question here. What kind of house are you planning on putting in there?
Smaller 2 stories, because they're small
When
lots.
you say smaller 2 stories, what size are you talking?
32 feet by 32 feet is what I have on the tentative partition. So that or smaller, and so if you take a 32 foot by 32 foot 2-story home with a garage, it's about 1,600 square feet. And so that would probably be the maximum size, just for the practical size of the lot, the room to get a standard system and a riparian septic tank, fire turnaround, there's constraints. So they're small homes, and I wouldn't call any home nowadays cheap, but more on the, you know, in keeping with what's around it.
What is the price range?
Probably 500,000 or less. We all hope the market doesn't crash with rising rates, but probably not much more than 500,000, practically speaking.
My other question for you is that often when we get these, we have some kind of engineer report, like when we have something like a slope like this.
Yeah.
We don't see that. Do you have anything? Because I'm sensing that may be a hang up. This slope and whether it can be engineered so that it be stable.
I don't have that, but that's something that I will provide.
It's in the conditions,
Right, but
yeah.
I'm simply saying that before I make a decision, I like to see what I'm looking at,
Yeah, and
okay?
can't disagree with that.
All right. All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Had you considered dividing this into perchance 2 lots instead of 3 and maybe be able to save some of the trees and help with some of this engineering?
It's a consideration, it's a viable suggestion. Obviously, from a developer's point of view, it's more economically feasible to divide it into 3. And I think the sales price of the homes would reflect it as well. If more affordable homes are desirable, because I think they would be more affordable if you could get 3 rather than 2.
Mhm. And affordable housing obviously is an issue in the county.
I think it's a problem.
Well, in that regard, I would add, if you don't mind,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, I suggested a duplex or 4-plex or 3-plex or, you know, one less building with smaller units that would in fact be more affordable, but I don't think it's as easy for every builder to get financing for that kind of housing. That's all I know, is he said we need 3 to make it pencil.
You did suggest that. That was a good suggestion as well, but it's just not something that would work for me right now. If you suggested a 4-plex possibly, or something like that. Single family homes, they do affect the rental market as well. So you can get more people into homes. I mean, it's theoretically that'll loosen up the rental market as well.
Okay, any further questions?
Are the other, are the first 2 lots, there's a garage under in all the houses?
No, their first 2 lots are pretty flat, so
So it's garage plus living on a single.
actually, the plan the footprint that I've outlined there is kind of a garage under, but the lots are flat.
Right, but still you're suggesting a 2-story house.
2-story homes on all 3, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now is the time that we take any input from the audience. First, are there any proponents for this project?
I would like to speak in favor.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Just wait. Are you a opponent or a proponent?
I am a proponent. I am actually part of the applicant party. I'm Scott
Okay.
Cooter with CKI Land Surveying.
You can let him be part of the applicant's report.
Okay, you're part of the applicant's report.
Yes,
need to
I
make
actually helped put the application together.
Okay, so I need you to give your full name and address, please, so our minute taker can get that.
Can do. Scott Cooter. I'm a professional land surveyor. I work for CKI Land Surveying. And my mailing address is P.O. Box 2699 in Gearhart. And I'm the one who put together the application, and I'm a proponent of the project, obviously. I'd like to make a couple points of clarification. The grading on this project being at a 2-to-1 slope for the 3rd parcel would not look anything like what the end of Park Place. That's graded more at a 1-to-1 slope, and ours is at a more gradual 2-to-1 slope. I think it's currently at a 3-to-1 slope. And if you want to think about it for people that don't understand what 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 means, it means basically for every 2 feet of horizontal distance, you go down 1 foot of vertical distance. So according to the engineer that I spoke with, a 2-to-1 slope on a sandy soil type is stable, and what has been done on Park Place is a little bit steeper than that. So I just wanted to make that point. Other than that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have as far as surveying standpoint. I know that Carol mentioned labeling the turnaround width, and that will be done on the final partition plat. And it sounds like there was a request to have a 5-foot easement for pedestrians to access the railroad grade, which is just fine. It would be just for the 3 houses that we're building on those lots, and we can incorporate that into the final partition plat. And then the other thing that I was going to mention is that, you know, we talk about the trees that are going to be removed and the slope. I just want to remind everybody that this is a conceptual plan, not a final design. You know, Nate, having gone through this process before, has decided that, you know, we kind of want to divulge as much information as possible in showing that this is what could be built, and it's not necessarily a final design by any means, and not necessarily every tree that we've shown on the plan to be removed will be removed. It's subject to septic approval and building official approval. So with that, I will give it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, now we'll move on. Oh, do we have any questions for her? Anyone have questions for her? All right, fine, thank you. Now we'll move on to proponents then. Are there anyone that would like to testify as proponent for this land division? Again, I don't, oh, that's right, I remember you did want to talk about, okay, now's your chance. And if you'd stand and give us your name and your address, please. Not you, no, you testify, behind you.
Hi, I'm Mike Magyar. I live at 36494 Battle Creek Lane in Astoria. And I think Nathan's project sounds excellent. I can say that I've got a lot of experience doing these kinds of things, and just from listening to this debate and knowing the area, I think the county desperately needs more affordable housing. I know one might argue that $500,000 is hardly affordable housing, but in the city of Gerhart, maybe it is. These guys are really great. Nathan is an excellent home builder. Scott is an excellent surveyor, and Scott has platted gazillions of properties, and a lot of happy citizens live in houses that both Nathan has built and Scott has platted. And I think you guys are doing a great job of looking at all the details. And I support these kinds of developments. And that's just from me listening to your debate just now, from what I could pick up. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Any other proponents? Yes, sir.
My name is Chris Pounds. I live
How do you
at
spell that?
POUNDS,
Okay,
and Alicia is
Oh,
my
all
wife
right,
here as well. We live at 1321 Park Lane, Gerhart 97138. Nathan has, he actually purchased the property from me a year ago, or a little over a year ago, and for this reason of what he's doing. I'm also trying to do a project at the end of Park Lane. So the grade that you guys are seeing is actually, we're under construction right now. We're putting a wall up and some things up to keep that sand, you know, everything where it needs to be
On Park Lane,
on Park Lane.
right?
So we just got permitted for that, which we're very grateful for. Went through all the steps, and the staff here has been great to us, and Nathan has helped me as well as advising, and we are willing to work with Nathan at that grade, whatever it needs to be at the top, because I'm actually bringing a little bit of that down and put behind Chad knows. Been permitted to bring it down just a little bit to fill in behind the wall that we're putting up to stabilize the sustaining wall behind Miss Ronnie's and Josh Gromo, the fire chief's house on that property line. So with that being said, he's helping us, and I think he's great. Miss Carol knows me from previous things where I helped her up the hill. So, and I just want to say that I'll be meeting you guys with the same thing here in the future, but I just know that I will be able to help. If I'm needing anything from me, I will help on our, we're willing to do whatever we can to get things going as well, as being part of your heart, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else as a proponent? Okay, hearing none. Opponents, do I have any opponents to this proposal?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead and stand and give us your name
My
and
name
address.
is Brian Evans, and my mailing address is 1142 Buttercup Road, Haley, Idaho, 83333. I own EPI Properties that owns the two adjacent properties there, and I am opposing this. I do not believe that it meets section 40 of the code as far as abutting the street that was mentioned and discussed. I think the intent of that is to abut the street. That section 40 also kind of specifically says through lots are to be avoided. That's the exact situation we have, as was pointed out. That previously it was approved that the only access to the two back lots was through this easement, and the easement does exist. Allowing this to be partitioned into 3 lots is exasperating that decision. I don't believe that, it also in section 38, it says any development, street, private or not, has to be, I mean, I can read that here. Has to meet the city street standards. Section 38, a land partition shall conform to the relevant city street design standards. There's no possible way that this meets that standard. So, and I just don't, my issue is access. The access is through the only access is through the 2 lots that I own, and I do not believe you can provide adequate access to further subdivide. I further believe that there is an existing easement. When I bought the property, which was within the last year, the easement existed. Any expansion of that easement would require my consent, and dividing that from 1 lot to 3 would clearly be an expansion of the scope of the easement. Some of the things specifically mentioned here earlier tonight that would require an expansion of the easement, for example, would be no parking signs. No parking signs are not listed or part of that easement as it stands now. If this were approved and required, no parking signs would be applicable to the entire easement. So that's a clear expansion of the existing of the easement as it exists. So that is my contention, that there just is not adequate access to support the division of 3 lots. I don't disagree that the plat as it exists was ill-conceived in terms of the way that the easement winds up through there and goes back there. I think that was probably not a good decision, but as was pointed out, that ship sailed. But I don't think it would be appropriate to exasperate it and further divide the lots, because there's no question that a further division of the lot, allowing 3 lots, is going to have impact, will increase the impact of the easement as it exists. So, and I mean that, further, you mentioned the requiring an approach. That entirety of that approach is on my property. So those are further imposing on me as the owner of those 2 lots. So I just don't think, I can't see how you could deem that the access would meet the city standards here. And so I'm opposed to allowing this land petition for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other opponents here tonight? No one else? Okay, is there anyone, I never understood this, but I was supposed to ask, are there any neutral comments? I guess those are people that, I don't know,
Some say.
they just want to say something. Okay. So now it's time for the applicant to rebut anything that they would like to at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you raised good points. I think you also have to consider that while the easement the easement is there to provide ingress and egress to a property, but we also have to remember that that property has a zoning classification and it's zoned and it's intended to be used in a way to build or to divide in a certain manner. And in this case, it's medium density. That's R2, 7,500 square foot lots. So I don't think, at least in my mind, an easement doesn't restrict the highest and best use of a particular zone piece of property. Logically speaking, I think, if there was an easement to a 40-acre piece of property that was zoned in a particular manner, I don't think we could say that, well, it's only ingress and egress for one resident. So that's my take on that issue.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no more comments, I will close the public hearing at this point. Now is the time for the commission to discuss any concerns, or if there's time, if we want to talk questions or any concerns. I'll start over there with Russ. Russ, do you have anything?
Well, yeah, I'm concerned about the dune and the loss of trees. It just seems like it's a very tight fit and I understand to maximize the use of the property to get, the three lots are potentially there, given the footage involved. But I think the road, the easement is essentially reducing those 7,500 foot lots to 5,500 foot lots, because the easement is part of that 7,500 feet on at least two of the three. And so there's that issue. That those are my concerns, that dune, I mean, I'm sure the engineering can be done, but the engineering is going to lose trees no matter how you do it. And I've had to take down trees in my time, and that's part of the game of building. But there's a lot of them there that are essentially stabilizing the dune. And in this instance, they're doing more than just being pretty trees on the horizon. So anyway, that's mine.
Thank you. Don?
I guess I kind of have mixed feelings from what I've heard so far. I agree with Russ. The dunes and the trees are a concern. And I also read the letter regarding what you would call livability in that area. I'm also concerned about what our future plans are with the railroad avenue or the railroad dune and the parks plan. I think that's something that's important that we have worked on. And then it does seem like it is getting kind of crammed in here a little bit, and that's why I asked if we thought about just the two. To me, that's like, then you can maybe keep more of the dune and the trees and stuff, but I totally understand the viability of that, economically for sure. I think you made a good point about the fact that the easement exists and this is a certain zoned area, so the highest and best use of that, the easement should apply to that. I also take into account both Scott Cooter and Mike Magyar's comments, are two people who I know and respect, and their position on that. So I guess right now I'm open to somebody making up my mind for me. Maybe some more information at this hearing or perchance another one.
Okay, I'm going to go to John now because I'm going to forget you otherwise, and it would not be intentional.
Oh, don't forget me. I'm paying such close attention. So I have a question. I'm not entirely, as the new member, I'm not sure whether it's an appropriate question, but you'll tell me if it's not. Mr. Evans raised what seems to be a legal issue as to whether or not the intent of the easement has any bearing here. And do we need counsel to provide our perspective on whether or not the intent of the easement is relevant to our decision?
Excellent question. I gave her that same question today, so it's not the first time Carol's heard it. Carol, do you have an answer?
Not a final answer. I've never had that question in any other land divisions come before me. In particular, I'm pretty sure the easement does not say that in writing. I think it's purely an access and utility easement. And you said it was an easement to one parcel back there, potentially, because it says for parcel one right on this drawing.
The letter said that the easement was originally granted to go back to one building.
Well, it didn't say to one building, it said for parcel one, I think. It says it right on the plat, at least, and Scott might be able to affirm that the easement was designed or written to go to what was parcel one and is now parcel 1, 2, and 3. You know, legal advice is not a bad idea if you're, but it's not a part of our, as far as the criteria go, I think it's like with Gronmore, that was an easement. He could have divided that lot again, maybe into another couple lots and didn't, but I right now don't have a way to say final yes or no to that question.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
you raised the concern in your letter. So the easement, as you understand it, it says you wrote here, existing easement to one lot is one lot. Where the existing house is, or is one lot?
No, it's the one lot that
One
exists,
more.
it's parcel one.
One more lot, okay. that's-
One lot, it's the plat clearly shows 3 lots.
Yeah.
And it says right on there that it's an easement for parcel 1. My position is that
Yeah,
No, that's not
me
what
as
I'm.
investigating it and purchasing the property, I could see there was an easement to one lot. There was no, how would I contemplate subdividing it into 3 lots?
Okay, so there's no document that you
I don't
have.
have anything more than the easement as it's recorded.
as it's in this drawing,
Okay,
as it shows the original 3 lots, they're now becoming, so 1, 2, and 3 are the original, right?
Mhm.
There's the S curve, and the proposal is to turn this back one into 3.
Right.
So just,
And
you know,
my argument is also is that the further subdividing it makes it subject to the now current subdivision ordinance, and you can't possibly meet the standard.
that's a legal question too to me, because we've done this before, and it's a private.
You have to waive a bunch of things in order, because that road does not meet city standards, and the ordinance clearly says it has to.
okay. All right, we got John, did you have anything else?
Well, I just want to clarify one aspect, and I understand that the plat as it's written does not indicate that the easement is intended to serve only one home site. We do have a letter from Debbie and I Cutler indicating that was their intent. And again, it may not have no legal bearing whatsoever, but I think our attorney, if we do ask our attorney for perspective here, should consider that as well.
Okay, thank you. Sharon?
I'd first like to say that I absolutely have concerns about the trees being cut down, the number of trees being cut down, and the dune destabilization as a result. Carol also put in there as a finding that there's some concern about the drainage issues. I also have concerns about that. And then lastly, I came across something that I wanted to run by you all to see if it was even applicable for this situation. This is a Gerhardt zoning ordinance, section 3.240, number 10. And if I could just read that, it's only one sentence. It says, the sand dune ridge located adjacent to the improved portion west of Railroad Avenue shall be maintained. The ridge shall not be breached or reduced in size.
Let's grab that again. I'll-
Yeah, 3.240.
240.
It's on the wrong way. Because we did talk about this at the staff level a month ago. Oh, that's 11. Okay, this is a long section. It's developed, it's the,
So I have an interpretation of that. I don't have it in front of me, but I
I'm
can
trying
kind of figure that out. So the developed portion of Railroad Avenue, in my interpretation, is from Pacific Way to the south. That Railroad Avenue has not been developed north of Pacific Way. The intention, I believe, through lore, was that the dune that was south of Pacific Way along the Railroad Avenue that's been paved was left in place to divide C2 zone and an R zone, residential zone. And I think that's why they called that area out. There was a bit of a dust up before me that involved a homeowner breaching that dune. And that was quite a big issue for Gearhart. So that's the interpretation of that code.
it's the
developed-
improved, yeah,
Improved portion, excuse me.
of Railroad Avenue, which is a very small section.
Yeah,
down
it
the
goes from
south
Pacific
end.
Way to Osterland.
Yeah, and I started with this and told you, sorry, I can't do that. But then Chad responded that it's only a small section of Railroad Avenue which has been improved, and this of course hasn't.
So you're saying it's not applicable to this area?
Yeah, and
Interpretation.
that's a good find. I should have written it out and how we did that. We did consider it.
Yes, Derek.
Yeah, we've already kind of rehashed this, but I can't vote to approve this until a couple of these questions raised by Mr. Evans have been answered. The first one, the proposed petition does not meet the criteria in section 40 of the Gearhart subdivision ordinance. I would like the answer to that. And just as important in number 2, he says it represents a substantial expansion of the scope of the existing easement. And I think we need to get Peter's input on this, because what goes through my mind, if that is raised as an issue, am I a commissioner required to take that into consideration when I make my decision? And is that a legitimate reason to deny the application? I think we're trying to practice law without a license here. And I think what we need to do is ask Peter to answer those questions. And until I get those answered, I can't support this. I know that easements can be very contentious when over the years they're used a certain way and then all of a sudden they're expanded. And that's going to happen more and more as more properties are developed. So I would suggest that we get Peter's input on this. That's all I have. I do like the price point, though. I think that is really important. And if it weren't for these questions, I don't think I would have a problem supporting it, because I think he can kind of finesse some of these things that have been raised and solve those issues. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Judy? I agree with what's just been said about Mr. Evans' comments, because I don't know enough to know whether they apply or not. It seems to me that if we require a certain level of for the easement to be a certain standard for that kind of development, then we really have to think about that anyway for this situation. I'm always sad to see trees taken out unnecessarily, but I'm trusting that what you're saying is that it is necessary. And I don't know enough about whether or not the dune will become destabilized, because that would be a bad thing too. So I think there's still some questions to be answered before we can really approve this or not, or suggest that approval for it. So I agree a little legal advice would be useful.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns about the easement. I've driven on that road and to begin with felt like it's trespassing on someone's property. And my husband kept going, no, you can't go down here. I am. I know that the home there, that there were trailers, it seems like there's more than a trailer park there. Or maybe it's just my poor backing up skills, but at any rate, I can see how putting 3 houses down there would cause an uptick, certainly in the amount of traffic going through that area. It's a private easement, so there seems to be no agreement in any of this documentation as to who's going to maintain that easement. It would put on Mr. Evans the onus to put in the asphalt at the egress. Which it wouldn't be logical to give a partition of property and put a burden on someone else because of that partition. So I have real problems with that the road is, it goes in, it goes up, it does everything. I have a concern with the trees. I can understand why the trees need to be removed when you're taking that slope and you're shifting it, because the slope is still there. They are still going to go from one level up to the other level. They're just, rather than it being over here and here, that it's going to be still up to that top. It's just going to take up half the lot rather than the full lot, which it does right now. So I have problems too. I might make a suggestion. We do have the choice to make no decision. We have the choice to continue this after we got some advice.
I agree with that, and I guess, again, the questions I would like is number one, this partition does not meet the criteria of section 40 of the Gerhardt subdivision. The second question is, would this subdivision be a substantial expansion of the scope of the existing easement? If so, is that something as commissioners we should consider? And is that a legitimate reason to deny the application? And Peter should be able to give us a definitive answer on this.
Thanks.
The law does exist.
Yeah.
That he could plug the facts into and give us a definitive answer.
Okay. So I look to the commissioners for some kind of motion. Can't leave it just sitting here.
Can we just make a motion to continue? it
Yes,
to
you can.
June?
Yes, you can.
I just did.
All right.
To July.
Has moved to, Terry has moved to continue this to date certain of July. What's that date? Someone?
14th is the second Thursday.
14th doesn't.
I think you're right.
July 14th.
July 14th. That's okay, to July 14th. Is that correct, Terry?
Yeah.
Do I have a second for that? I have a second from Don. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, thank you. All those opposed say nay. All right, we are going to continue it then.
I think if anybody else has questions that they want Peter to answer, that they should give them to Carol. And she can
Okay.
convey them to- These are only my questions. Other people may have.
You've asked the same questions, but you've all asked in one way or another. All right, thank you. Thank you to those that testified tonight. The public hearing is closed, but we will continue next month to see what we can get some advice on some of these issues because we simply do not know. Moving forward, we have no unfinished business. We have no new business. Do we have any concerns of the commission? We have no concerns. It is 7:28. Meeting adjourned.
I'll see you all next month.
Right.
But I, that's why I went and I had him speaking for chairman. I'm like, oh, I better forget him.
Each time, if you forget them all.